this is a light that, like, personally, me and Jarrell have been going back and forth on, because it's like,
just go forth.
Just go. Oh gosh.
No, seriously. I was like last week, I was like, Brandon, talk me off the ledge. Talk me off the ledge, because I'm about, like, I want that. Is obviously you're going to probably say no to this because you light things and you have tons of lights, but it feels like the 1200X is one light to rule them all.
Yes, with a little star next to it. And let me nerd out, and I'll talk about why. I'll talk about why you wouldn't need it, and I'll talk about what's great about it. Why you wouldn't need it: size and budget. Like if you're doing run and gun indie stuff, you and maybe one other person, or you're the one lighting, don't get it. It's too big. It's large. You need heavier grip for it. You can't just use like a C stand. You got to have a bigger grip, like a combo stand. So it takes a bigger footprint. Great part is you can still plug it into house power like the 1200D, but yeah, it's just a larger footprint. So if you're doing things that you don't have the time for that, it's probably not for you. Also, if you're doing things like where you're not battling daylight all the time, like trying to expose for bright windows or trying to get hard sun slashes or whatever, you probably don't need it because it's a bright light. Equivalent wise, HMIs, for whoever's familiar, it's a notch brighter than an M18, which is like very impressive for something that can be run off of house power. So it's a bright fixture. So it's like, if you need that brightness, great, that's for you. But if not, if you're running with like a 600 watt, 300 watt kit, it's kind of like that works better. And like a lot of the times I'll pull like a 600 because it's just easier and smaller. I can throw it up fast and lightweight. But
tell me the good stuff. Tell me the good stuff.
But listen, I love my 1200Ds. I use them all the time on sets, and I always pull them. They're bright, they're punchy. I always wish they're a little bit brighter, and something just didn't feel full about it. And that hole is exactly what this X filled. So in a nutshell, same price as the 1200D, brighter than the 1200D across all of the range, from 2500 Kelvin to 10,000 Kelvin. You've got green magenta shift, so you don't have to battle like daylight, whatever, stuff like that. I don't know how to explain it. It feels fuller because of their new like color science. That it's that Blair color engine as opposed to just traditional white. So it gets you even closer to this real look of daylight. It's a lot fuller of light, and I can't, like, unless you guys want me to go into the deeper tech specs of how that all works, I won't bore anybody of it. But I think that bottom line for me is whenever I use the 1200Ds, I'd always have to gel it a little bit to warm it up because I'm using that for hot sun. And it just still never felt exactly as bright as I needed it to. And then I used the 1200X on it, and I could warm it up to like 4,000 or whatever, get that sun look, and it was bright. Like, I want to say, don't quote me on it, maybe 25% brighter than the 1200D. Yeah. And it's the same price. So they kind of just killed the 1200D in a way. I don't know if it was intentional or an accident, but they definitely did, because I'm like, I want to get rid of mine and just replace them with the X's.
Dude, I was on a shoot this week, and I have my 600D from Aperture, and I was outside.
Which is still a killer light.
It's a killer light, but you want more when you're outside. Like, you want, when I was at 100%, I had to pull the inner diffusion, I had to pull the outer diffusion off the softbox, and it was still like barely at 6 stops of ND. So anyways, I was like, I need this, Brandon. I need it.
I think at first
I don't need it, but I want it.
I tried to talk you off the ledge, and then I started doing more and more research, and I think I might have talked you off, but at the same time walked myself up there.
He's like, let me trade places with you. You get down there. I'm gonna stay here for a second.
Like, you're fine. You don't need it. And I was like, because it's great. Oh, wait a minute. Why am I up here now? That's literally where I found myself.
But the thing is, like, I don't know who saw my video that I did with it, that nostalgia one of like super warm, hard sun. Oh, yeah. I did that with it. And then like I had that light outside, like 15 feet away from the window in a different room. And then I saw some stuff in the kitchen, which was across the house. And I was like, this one feels like real sunlight is coming through the house. Just like, when like you've got that sliver of light that makes it from one room window all the way to the other room, and it's just like this beautiful natural sunlight. It's got that look because it's so bright. So not only is it, good quality, but it can throw far. And that's the difference that when I'm trying to emulate real sunlight, the thing with like a 600 or a 300 is like, yes, it's bright here, but in 10 feet, it's not. That's not like how the sun behaves. So being able to have a hot source really far, it's going to be bright here and bright there. And that's what I really like about it. So if you can budget for that footprint on set, or budget for the budget, because it is a pricey light, it's like you said, kind of a do-all with a little star next to it.
Yeah.
Well, I know people have questions. So really quick, before we hop into sort of our next area, chat, if you have questions for Brady about IBC, anything that he's talked about so far, do me a huge favor. Go ahead and throw those in the chat. But like typical, put a little Q, a little dash, and then put your questions. That way we can find them faster. Yeah.
Also, I got to say, my coffee just hit, so make them hard, like make them juicy, because now I feel good. So like I was sitting there and I was like, damn, I feel nice. So make them good.
All right. So yeah, any questions that you guys have? Jarrell.
Yes.
Do you have any questions?
Dude. So I did watch your last video where you had the 1200X, you hazed up I'm assuming your house or maybe a different house or whatever.
It was a friend's house. It's beautiful.
Yeah. The nostalgia was great. Now, from there, like any major drawbacks on that shoot when shooting with a 1200X, anything that like as you were working with the light trying to shoot and it didn't maybe perform the way that you thought it would, or just anything that you found quirky about the light?
That is a good question. I think that there wasn't anything like detrimental that stuck out. Mm-hmm. The size is one thing. Going back to it, like if I was just me and Erica, my behind the scenes shooter, that was it. So I would have to run out and make big moves of this light to other windows, and that was one thing. But that's, as you get bigger, it's just inevitable. You can't fight that.
For sure.
I don't think so. Like nothing, like maybe I wished it was brighter so I could throw it further, but that's just, you can't do that yet. Like,
yeah.
And it's still in a house outlet. So those are very small things. There's nothing where I was like, oh, I wish that would have changed. Maybe if I'm shooting with it again, I start to run into things like that. But nothing major, really.
And then last question, because Ted wouldn't talk about this at IBC, but do you know anything about that, what do they call it? That Pancake Fresnel or that compact Fresnel?
Yes. Well, yes and no. I saw it and I had the same question. I was like, what is that? Because right before you asked that, I was about to say, but I wish there was a different modifier that could use all of the chip. Yeah. So to backtrack, like with the old Fresnels that would come, like the ones with the 600D or whatever, they're not optimized for bigger lights because it's like putting a crop sensor lens on a full frame sensor. It's just not going to use all of the sensor. So likewise, this modifier is not going to use all of the light chip, so it's dimmer and you don't get all the output for it. So now when Aputure is making their lights bigger and brighter, they don't have many modifiers that work for it. They've got the huge F14, which is just not practical unless you're in like a rental house. But then they don't have anything like a small Fresnel. So I saw that and I was like, what is that? And it was really like, it was a 3D printed prototype of a Fresnel that was just thrown on there just kind of like to get the attention. I'm surprised that a lot of people caught on to it. I don't know much about it except for the fact that I really liked it and it looked really nice on that 1200X.
Were they demoing it at all or no?
It was just there.
It just on.
Playing around with it as you like. Yeah.
That's cool.
They just kind of popped it on, like kind of how originally, like how Blazar just set it out. They told me they're like, we weren't going to put it out, but we're like not getting a lot of traffic, so I'm just going to put it out here, and then it just like snowballed. Because I not to sidetrack, we'll get back to the 1200X, but like I put out that reel that's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to show you this, and everyone roasted me. They're like, CineD did a review of like, you're not leaking it. Like everyone did like commented like, if it's out, But when I went there, I shot that day one. I went there and they were just like, yeah, we're not talking about it, but we're not getting a lot of traffic. So it's just here if people see it. So
Yeah.
throughout the course of the show, that just changed drastically to being like a public launch. So
Hey,
same thing
I
for
would
that little
definitely-
pancake. It was just there.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like Aperture does that every now and again. Like I remember, gosh, it was maybe 2019 when like the first Nova got announced. They just like had it just sitting
Yep.
inside of a glass box, and everyone was just like, "What is that?" And they were like, "Oh, it's just
I
there."
don't know.
You're just like
It
talking,
just is.
and like the first day they had it like covered with like a little black cloth. Or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then like so like you're like, oh, what is it? What is it? And then they had their Aperture, dinner or whatever. And then the next day on the floor, it's just there, and like they're like, we're not talking about it. It's just we just want you to know, like
It's
look
just
at
there.
it. Just look.
You know
at
what I
it.
was thinking on a real quick rabbit trail? I was like, what if these companies just like, you know how like companies will share and be like, this booth can take the Alexa to promote like Ari and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What if instead of putting it at their booth, it's just an Easter egg? Like there's a brand new product randomly in somebody's booth, like lighting somebody's like portrait or whatever shot at like a lens booth is like a brand new Aperture light that nobody knows about. And if they see it, great. But I don't know. I was like, that would be such a fun way.
That would be hilarious.
Brady, head of marketing.
There you go. Hey, thanks so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more content like this. Because let's face it, sooner or later, I might just be AI. And you'll never know. Or maybe you will.